All right, it's Psalm 2 Day, a place along the way. Let's read together. I am reading a New King James Version. Read whatever version you have, and let's go ahead and get started. So, Book 1, Psalm 2, and the heading is The Messiah's Triumph and Kingdom. Verse 1, Why do the nations rage, and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, capital H in his and capital A in anointed, saying, Let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. He who sits in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall hold them in derision. Then he shall speak to them in his wrath and distress them in his deep displeasure. Yet I have set my king, capital M, capital K, on my holy hill of Zion. Of course, Zion is capitalized as well. I will declare the decree. The Lord has said to me, You are my son, capital M, capital S. Today I have begotten you, capital Y. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance, and the ends of the earth for your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron. You shall dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Now, therefore, am I still reading the right psalm? Yes, sorry, y'all. Now, therefore, be wise, O kings. Be instructed, you judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish in the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all those who put their trust in him. All right, and so of course, every time it said it was God speaking in this psalm, and it's capitalized, and then King was capitalized because this, of course, is about the Messiah. And what else was, anytime it said you and it was referring to Christ or your, but also in a Zion, of course. But also I noticed when it referenced God's people, like in verse 3, it uses a capital T for their bonds, and capital T for their and their cords in verse 3. And I think that was it. And so then for Bible study notes in my study Bible, of course, you guys are going to share notes in the comments below from your study Bible, and whatever other study notes you have that you want to share, and any comments you want to share at all, because we're just reading in these short videos and reading together and sharing what notes we have. So in my Bible study Bible, it says for verse 2:1, where it says that the nations are plotting a vain thing. It says vain thing is a rebellion without a chance of success. Yes, because it's vain. And then verse 2, it says the English word Messiah is a transliteration of the Hebrew word, which here is translated anointed. The anointed one here is probably a king of Israel who prophetically is a type of Christ, the true anointed one, Acts 4:27. So we know that Christ means the anointed. Let's see. Yeah, and I think there's some other note on there. But, of course, this whole verse is really reflecting and prophesying on the anointed Christ who came down from heaven. Yes. Okay, and then 2 verses 6-9, the note says, God is speaking in verse 6. Let's see, verse 6 said, Yet I have set my king on my holy hill of Zion. So it says God is speaking in verse 6, and then the enthroned king states the decree of God in verses 7-9. Oh, okay, I hadn't thought about that. So, oh yeah, that's right, because it says, I will declare the decree. The Lord has said to me, You are my son. Okay. And then verse 7, it says, Jesus was always conscious that he was the Son of God, John 5:18-20. And it was this declaration that caused the Jewish elders to crucify him, Matthew 26:63-66. And the verse 8 note says, Matthew records that Jesus recognized his power in his commissioning the disciples to make disciples of all the nations. Matthew 28:18-20, which is a whole nother thing that Pastor Jeff is going to teach, because he is a pastor one day in the future, about Matthew 18-20. So we'll let the pastors pastor. All right. And then 2:12. Okay, yeah, I didn't really put a note. Okay, yeah, it says kiss. So verses 12 says kiss the Son. So this says kiss is a sign of submission. 1 Kings 19:18. Thus do homage is the meaning here. Now I thought I read something else in here. Oh, I skipped something. Yeah, okay. So at the very first note says it's covering all of the whole Psalm 2. So it says for verse 1-12, this is a messianic psalm in which nations and kings are warned to serve God because ultimate judgment has been entrusted to Christ. It is applied to Christ at least 5 times in the New Testament. All right, now I got one other note in my study Bible is about 2:8. And it says, God's promise to his Messiah, world evangelism. This great messianic psalm discloses the heart of God toward his own Son. Quotations, or quote, ask of me, I will give you the nations for your inheritance. This end quote. This conversation introduces an amazing declaration that all the nations of the world are intended to come under the aegis of his Son's rule. However, the qualifier is, quotations, ask. In John 17, through his high priestly prayer, Jesus does exactly this. John 17:1-28. However, his request involves our response. We must unite, John 17:21, and we must receive the authority manifest in God's name and glory, which Jesus, as the interceding Messiah of Psalm 2, has conferred upon us, his church. That sentence is written very weirdly. I don't know what I just read. In any case, it says, in this name we pray, and by this glory we triumph, receiving the inheritance of nations as God has promised. Yeah, I don't really know what that means, but that's what my notes say. Okay, yeah, I need to reflect on that. All right, y'all, that is Psalm 2. Thank you for joining. Be sure and put your comments in the comments below, and I'll see you tomorrow.